Coming from the Caveman Studios in Buffalo, New York. Welcome to Caveman Corner with your host, Jeff.
Captain Caveman!
Thanks.
Click subscribe and the bell. Do it now!
We're here with Mr. Barnett, the War Master. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. I guess you just wanted someone more Cro-Magnon, brow ridge looking than either you two, huh? To really solidify this whole caveman aesthetic. By the way, nice Hanna-Barbera Captain Caveman. Shout out, I should say homage, imitation in the intro. Just the other day, I had to explain who El Kabong was.
We're getting old, man. We're definitely getting old. These young guys, I don't know what any of the good cartoons are.
Yeah.
I grew up on Captain Caveman, and my jiu-jitsu coach named me that. Like, I had a big nose, and my jiu-jitsu wasn't really all that great, and I didn't have a gas and out problem, but every now and then I get stuck. He's like, man, you're just like Captain Caveman, and that's how I got the nickname, and it's stuck. It's just he's always making fun of my big nose.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's plenty of other routes he could have taken that would be less friendly, but if he was so insistent on calling you Captain Caveman, then you should have brought a club to practice too.
Yeah, I'm definitely bringing clubs to practice. I love your beard. You look really good with the beard. That fully grown in beard looks really good.
Yeah, it's I've gone with it without it over the past, I don't know, 6, 7 years, but I feel like having the beard it's a different look for me, but one that seems to be very familiar to most folks now and really natural. But also, I kind of see it as an acceptance of my older age, and I'm just embracing it.
You look kind of savage, like an old school Viking warrior, and you look intellectual too at the same time. It's kind of like a crazy look. It's like just fits you perfect.
That's the only one I got.
I listened to a bunch of podcasts, and you've been on Rogan, you've been on Lex Friedman, and you're super intellectual, but I hear you're launching another beer, and I could not believe how much effort you put into making your bourbon. Like, it's crazy that you are so involved in it.
Well, they say if you do what you love, it's like you never work a day in your life. It's a goddamn lie. But in fact, if anything, you work 3 times as hard, 4 times as hard, 5 times as hard. We could just keep doing orders of magnitude until we get to an acceptable level. But also, sure, I'll take the compliment of having some aspect of intellectualism to who I am, but then I balance it out, not only by going in the ring and fighting and punching myself in the head, getting punched in the head and punching others in the head, decreasing IQs all around. And then I get into alcohol and spirits. I'm just trying to bring us all down to an acceptable level of stupid.
So I'm around a bunch of fighters all day long. I run a gym, and I fought, obviously. And I told everyone I'm gonna have you on. Everybody wants to know where to get your bourbon. So that's of all the questions to ask you. That's what everyone asked me. Everyone wants to know where do we get your bourbon from?
The short answer is in California, especially, and in Washington State. We have distribution there, and I believe we have product on the shelves in both. And sign up for the email list at warbringerbourbon.com so that when we do have stuff set aside for direct sales, we'll put out an email blast, and you will have the opportunity to order through that system and get yourself a bottle. Usually, we usually only do it for the single barrel releases because those are the most sought after, and those are the ones that only come about every now and again. Whereas the standard blend is something that is usually what we have out on shelves as much as possible, and constantly updating and restocking with our brick and mortar sales. But the long answer to that is every state has its own regulations and restrictions in regards to bringing and selling alcohol and distributing alcohol in a state. And even with the direct sales, there are states at which direct sales are not allowed at all. I think Mississippi, for one, is one of them, maybe Michigan too. but don't quote me on that. Go look it up. The other thing about that is once you can get to a state, then you have to find a distributor. And then you also have to have enough product to distribute it. We're a very small distillery. We run off of one still. It takes a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of work to get the small amount that we can create. But if we keep going and things are successful, then hopefully we can expand. But distillery equipment, especially stills and condensers and all that, are very expensive unless you know how to build one yourself. And even then, the materials are still going to cost you a decent amount of money because of the amount of copper involved, the type of stainless that you have to use, which is a particular grade that is acceptable for it's essentially considered food safe, and it's high quality stuff. And then of course you got to be able to weld it and fabricate, time and effort. And if you can't do those things, like most of us, because my welding skills are awful. I can do it, but they're the worst. So there is no way I'm going to be roped into any of this because I would just waste everyone's time. But so then you're going to have to pay someone, and that's expensive too. So we're working on trying to get more out there for everyone.
That's crazy that how in depth that you are involved in this project. Obviously, when you hear about athletes supporting a project, usually it's just their name attached to it, and that you're so into it, it's awesome to see. And it's like, I don't even drink, and I'm interested in it just because of how you talk. I don't even know the difference between like barley and hops, and I know you got a beer coming now too. Like, so it's you want to talk about your beer a little bit, and like, how did you get so involved into the making of alcohol?
Being a drunk.
Most people just drink it; they don't get involved in like making it. Like that's a special kind of person.
What are you just? Is that a cavalcade of La Croix cans or Coke Zeros or something knocked over? Rock stars.
Rock stars, yeah.
He don't drink. He destroys his insides in a different way. Well,
correct. That's correct, sir.
I really like whiskey, but I also like whiskey as it pertains to traditional craft, right? So while not every culture has a tradition of spirits in the same way that the Europeans do, and now Americans, with the barreling and aging and all that kind of stuff. And it's bled to other places, right? The creation and the way that they do rum. But every culture has alcohols. They have spirits of some sort. And there is tradition in that, even if it isn't done in the same fashion. It's something that every person around the world has figured out one way or another to get involved in. And everybody's got their own stuff. I mean, to the point that one group might call their type of clear neutral spirit, like a vodka. They'll call it vodka in one place and grilka in Ukraine and something else somewhere else. And then you go to shochu and soju. They're basically the same thing, but it depends on your ABVs for them. But they're also essentially vodkas too. All right. But nonetheless, they'll fight you tooth and nail saying they're different, and that's okay. But for me, I just really love the whole idea that by getting involved in a craft and even in the hobby side of it, and that's convenient to be able to say that alcoholism is a hobby, but that you can trace all these things back to processes and earlier generations and generations and generations, and you can then be a part of all that. Plus, I like spirits in general. I think there's a lot to them. They're more than just taking shots or anything of that nature, or even building cocktails. There could be a lot that goes into some of these different spirits. And go look into Solera cask aging in Spain and Portugal. It's incredible, the ages on some of these barrels, or port aging in Portugal and Spain. Well, I guess that would just be just be Spain. But then some of that aging processes like Solera is used in sherry as well, which is a fortified wine. Portuguese and Spanish. It's all kinds of cool stuff. And I've always really liked whiskey, and I really got into it living in Japan. And as I got older and I started looking into more business endeavors and things to be busied with for my post-fight career, I really started looking into trying to find a distillery I could work with where we could formulate something for me, and something that I would be directly involved in, because I have no interest in putting my name to something that doesn't live up to not just my standards, but it wouldn't be of the quality that I could go out there and face the world and fight for it if somebody even wanted to critique it, right? I want to know it in and out. I want to believe in it, and I want it to be something that if no one liked it but I did, it was good enough for me.
That's amazing. Do you think you're going to? Is this good enough for you to do as a post-fight career between making the drinks and coaching? Is that enough for you? Is that going to replace like getting into the cage and getting into the ring?
Mm-hmm. Nothing does. But faced with our own inevitable mortality and all the deterioration up to that point, it's just inevitable. So you need to get with it, or I don't know, go mad from something you have no way of controlling, or no way of really stopping. Anyhow, you can slow it down. You might get a little gap. I mean, I've been dealing with injuries and things for a while, but there's a good possibility I could find another like little peak in and amongst these next few years. And if there's an opportunity to fight, I'll fight. But I don't look at it as something that I'm going to plan the future around. I have other things that are more worthwhile to my time and efforts and energy. So, I love to train, and I don't really intend to ever stop. But, the idea of making my living entirely by being a professional fighter, and even at some point as a professional wrestler, just won't be available to me. And I could deal with that. It doesn't mean I like it, but I think that as much as you can acknowledge it when you're younger, the days in which you can really understand what that means come later. Or it could be from a catastrophic injury of something, but and even then, sometimes you want to tell someone just because you broke your leg on Chris Weidman's shin doesn't mean that's the end of you either. Surgery, maybe get right back out there. But I don't want to fall into that trap of trying to chase for something that is so far away that it's out of reach anymore. I want to put my time into other things that I love, and I want to build off of what I got from fighting into the rest of my life, and into that with everything that I do with all my students and my friends and family.
You're still signed with Bellator, correct?
You got any movies coming out?
No, I'm not with Bellator. No, I don't have. Well, actually, there may be a movie coming out with. It's been on the shelf for a bit. But I was a part of a project with Michael Jai White called Outlaw Johnny Black, which is an homage to and a satire of the blaxploitation westerns of the 70s, like Three the Hard Way and stuff like that. Jim Kelly, Fred Williamson, and rest in peace, just recently, running back for the Cleveland Browns, Jim Brown.
Jim Brown.
Yeah. So that actually should be doing some theaters here later in the year. Actually, I should be posting about that at some point, because I do have some propaganda, as we should call it, to spread the word. But September 15th, it'll be in theaters. Outlaw Johnny Black. And also folks that worked with Mike on Black Dynamite are on it. And that all started from an idea and us shooting a sizzle on this Western set. Me, his wife, Mike, a few other of us. And we put the sizzle reel together, a little trailer, and that got it picked up, developed, and we shot it in 2019, I believe. And it's been getting edited and messed with and different things. And obviously COVID had an impact on that, but yeah, that should be coming out. And I was just on a recent episode of I Wish You Would Leave on Netflix. But I haven't really been putting the time into the acting stuff. You've only got so much. It's not even just time, right? People think that, oh, well, if I had an hour to do this and then 2 hours for that and 30 minutes for this, and sure, you could, I mean, depending on how autistic you are, you could really divvy up your day into really very regimented blocks of time. But it's not just that. It's also your own internal bandwidth, I would say. Like your ability to stay on one subject well enough or one project well enough to deliver what your aim is, what your goal is, and then now go to the next one and then go and do that. And so for an example, if it came to acting, can you really embody the spirit of the moment that you want to portray from that character in a way that you think makes sense in the entirety of the plot, the movie itself, as well as your character and how that is integrated into it. So, I mean, there's plenty of instances where you'll see actors completely just trying to chew up every scene they're in. But you look at it and you go, your choices are based on your own selfish, egotistical bullshit. It's really not based on what is necessary for the movie. And so it's funny. And, I'm not a shit talker, really. I'm not, for the most part. I'm a shit responder, but not a talker. I really, 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 really like Javier Bardem as an actor. I think he's fantastic. I thought his portrayal as Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men was brilliant, and I think he's been great in a lot of other stuff. However, he's awful in Dune. He made horrible choices. He has an accent that doesn't belong, and I think he completely destroys the ability to be invested and to suspend disbelief in watching this film. There's this richly, beautifully crafted world in which all this takes place. And by the way, I'm talking about the new one, the new Dune by Villeneuve, or however, Denis Villeneuve. And he comes in with this like 19th century Mexican revolutionary poncho. I said, what the fuck are you doing, dude? You guys are, the Bedouin are based on like, or not the Bedouin, they're based on the Bedouin, the tribes people, the Fremen are based on the Bedouin, essentially. Bro, that's in the Middle East. What the fuck are you doing? You're doing this because you, as an actor, and your ego think this is amazing. Think this is just gonna just be so rich, and you're just, no, dude, that sucks. That's awful. You should fucking quit at doing that, not acting, because you're an amazing actor. But that is awful, and you're fucking ruining the movie. And it's also on the actors, on the director's fault, because he didn't step in and tell him and reads and pre-reads, table reads, and all this stuff. Like, don't you fucking do that. Don't. You do that, I'm gonna walk out from behind the camera and punch you in the fucking face. Don't. You're an incredible actor, and you are wasting not only our time and effort, you're ruining the film itself. You're completely creating this whole nother realm of existence in this already crafted universe, and you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, you're an incredible actor. You could make a better choice. I personally didn't like Tom Hardy's Bane in that Dark Knight or whatever it was called. But it wasn't. But I didn't think he was a bad actor, and I just, it wasn't for me. He likes that choice, but it wasn't necessarily a bad choice in the film. I thought it didn't work for me, but that's fine. I still think it was a fine performance in general by Tom Hardy. But Bardem in this new Dune, no. So tangent aside, I'm not out here trying to say that I'm as good an actor in any way as Bardem or Hardy. But if I'm going to do something, I need to make sure that I can deliver, not just for what I think makes me look good, but for what the project demands and the story demands. Because the story is what is supposed to be the point of the movie, not whether or not I'm in it necessarily. And so with that, if I'm not doing what I think is necessary to be able to deliver that, then I'm not going to go out there and waste people's time and waste my own time. And so you can have all these different endeavors like I do, but if it gets to the point where I can't deliver not just an acceptable level, but what is needed, what I think is needed to make it work right, then that's just, I'm spread too thin.
Is that a hard world for you? You seem like so honest and so upfront, and you don't take any bullshit. Is Hollywood like a tough place for you to? Is acting tough for you? It seems like you would not fit in with everybody. Really.
I mean, look, the whole world is tough for me, brother. Let me just put it that way. Like, I feel like we live in a world where there are levels of lying that is totally acceptable and are the way taken by most folks most of the time. You could call it excuses to start at the beginning of it, but everybody always feels like they have an excuse as to why something didn't work, or they're always trying to find a way that they could be not held accountable for their failing. And instead of doing that, how about we take extreme accountability? How about we really push to be the best versions of ourselves, as corny as that sounds, but like, let's try to be our strongest and not fall prey to our weaknesses. But we're gonna fail, and when that happens, deal with it, own it, be straight, and just move forward. And that's it. Don't do it twice, hopefully. But at the same time, acting is difficult because it's a completely different kind of system that you have to engage in versus, say, fighting or even coaching or professional wrestling and acting do have some overlap, but not quite the same. Especially because pro wrestling, as it was intended in the modern sense, because as it was intended in the pre-modern sense, it was, well, I guess it's technically, if we're being really sticklers, it's always been a modern concept. It's part of modernity in the cycle of things. And anyways, as pro wrestling was originated, it was more essentially MMA and professional submission wrestling. But in this day and age, there's a lot of improv, or that went with what led up to what we're at now. Although now everything is scripted, so it's completely different. But so there is some overlap there, but improv is not the same as acting. And while there is a space for improv and acting, it depends on what the thing is. And also, if you're Will Ferrell, you can go out there and improv your ass off and chew up hours of time on a camera, and it's fine. And there's a reason for it, because goddamn guy's hilarious, right? He has way more wins than he has misses. And same with John C. Reilly. When you stick those two together, generally we expect something good. Sometimes you get Sherlock and Holmes or whatever the hell that movie was called, and you go, oh God, that's tragic. But not everything's a win. Not everything. Sometimes it's a miss. I have losses on my record, so it all goes the same direction. But a lot of acting's desire for me, besides just the ability to say, hey, what if you were 5th on the list, 6th on the list in the credits in some movie that, like Blade Runner? That would be incredible. Or some movie like even the Last Starfighter, or Conan the Barbarian, or
Last Starfighter is the best movie ever, man. I talk about it all the time.
If you were in the, I was just watching the Miami Vice pilot. It's a two-parter from 1984. Brilliant. You know, if you could be in some Michael Mann shit, that'd be incredible. But also, it's a challenge. You have to do things differently. You can't just use all the same systems that you have used to find success prior to this. And that challenge, having to problem solve and look for things in a far more subtle way, I like it. I like it. You can't like act harder and expect it to work better. Like it just, reps are important, and in fact, reps are incredibly important. But you just can't like, well, if I had just a bit more, you know, if I could just do it again. Nah, it's not quite like that. You can't force it.
Is it completely different than wrestling? Like wrestling, you get one take and that's pretty much over, right? And now you have to get it perfect when you're doing it in a movie, or not perfect, but perfect for you, perfect for the script, perfect for the director. It seems
well,
like
you can have multiple takes, and the more budget on a film, the longer the filming schedules, and the more opportunity for that stuff. So I think there's an interview, I think, of GSP talking about the preparation for the very short scene that he's in as Batroc against Captain America and that big old Marvel film. And it was like, that scene was like it took a month to shoot it, or maybe it was a month off. It was something where you look at it, you go, holy moly. I mean, that much time for 20 seconds, that's it. When you have a Marvel movie like that, and then if they ever followed up with him on that very same topic and asked him about that kickboxer movie he was in, you're not going to get that kind of time. Maybe you would get that time, or something approaching that, something having some semblance of it in like a final boss fight at the end of the movie, right? The big hero moment. You could get a bunch of time for that. But even then, like when we shot Never Back Down, No Surrender in Thailand, 8711 had already done the previs on what the fights were going to look like for the most part. So there was somebody who had already put in weeks in advance, long in advance, and it spent weeks creating a fight scene for the movie already. So, you know, that was already taken out of your hands. And I remember getting there and be like, well, I wouldn't have. Oh, well, it's locked in, so there's not much you can do. I had freedom in my stuff per se, but in this one, some of the fights for Mike in the movie, it's like, nope, they were locked in. I'm like, oh crap. Although, let me also give it a caveat. I love 8711, everything they do. It's just a person. It's just a personal preference, or, you know, style, opinion. That's what it is. And the funny thing was, an old student and friend of mine, Eric Brown, he was the one doing these previses at 8711. And so in a sense, it's also really cool to think that coming full circle, having this guy who used to train and fight out of CSW with me back in the day and work with us, and then here he is doing his own thing, and now we're still working together to make cool shit. So that was really awesome. But just to say, like, being in Thailand, we were there a month, but you might have a month to shoot one fight scene in a big Marvel movie because of the budgets and because of the amount of time that you can get with that money. So one take in wrestling and fighting and whatever, yeah, one take and that's it, man. That's all you get. That's your only shot. But even then, with multiple takes in acting, it's a machine. So it's not just yourself. So on your end, your ability to deliver, if you're doing something physical, like you got to hit your marks, you got to hit things in the right, from the right position, so that the camera picks it up just the way it should, and the lighting works just the way it should, which also means the people setting up the marks, setting up the cameras, having the proper focus, all that has to, I mean, there's tons of takes you'll go and they're like, oh, out of focus, oh, didn't get sound, oh, you know, something. You're just like, all right. I felt that was a really good one, but it's crap now. It's gone. It's going on the cutting room floor. And then the one maybe they keep, you're like, oh, that one felt inferior, but shit, they're moving on. So on your end, you can get those multiple takes, but if you can't get there, and especially on a low budget film, there's not going to be any time to help you, especially if you're not number one on the film. If you're not number one, if the film isn't completely built and banked on you, sorry, you might just have something bad on camera, and that's just it. There's no fixing it. Now, not that they want you to look bad per se, and they want a bad film, but the time and the budget only allots for so much. So just because you get more shots at it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work out in your favor. Because if it ain't your day, it just might not be your day.
How it was, how working with Michael J. White is he, I know he's a good traditional martial artist. Did you train with him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've trained together before. I mean, there's plenty of videos out there of us lifting weights together and stuff. But yeah, we've grappled a little bit. I've helped him on a few things. I've tried to pick his brain as much as I can about some of his approaches on the feet. And honestly, working with Mike is just like working with family. We have the same birthday. He's the one that pushed me into acting the most. And, doing films with him, at times almost like doing films for him, from my perspective, not for anything other than, I feel like I owe my brother to help him out. And I love the guy. He's amazing. His family's amazing. He's a great person. His family's great. And I can't say enough great things about Mike. And he's a stand-up guy. And, he's like family to me. So whatever he does, if it's small or large, behind the scenes or in front of it, behind the camera and in front of it, that I'll help him,
Cool. That's awesome. There's so much brotherhood and everything you talk about.
But it's important, everybody's so for themselves these days. Everything is so atomized, even when you're online, it's like, no, I'm this thing trying to boost myself up all the time. And people spend all this time putting all their efforts into getting that one big take, dunking on someone, doing this, saying something. It's always got to be a big response. It's always got to get viral and so on and so forth. And all right, great. But it's just another example of the great atomization of people, individualized to the point of being atomized, where there isn't community anymore. And what community you find is rare and or particularly, I don't know, I guess you could say, not based on something healthy. So it could be just like an echo chamber of narcissists trying to dopamine hit each other the whole time. And that's just not healthy. That's not the way people were designed to be. And when you've got what you would consider family and tribe, you should back them up. You should have their best interest at heart. And sometimes you're not the main, well, a lot of times, depending on perspective, you ain't the fucking main story, man. You're not the main character. You're not the main story. You're not the hero of this tale. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. Hell, maybe not most of the time. But, sometimes taking that back seat is what's necessary. You got to be there for someone else. And when you are the main character of something, I mean, you're always your own main character, but make sure that when that opportunity arises, that you're capable of stepping up and delivering.
You fought pretty much everyone that's ever been in MMA. Like you fought Pedro Hizzo, you fight Dan Severn, you fight Randy Couture. You've gone all the way through like every generation of MMA into like today's grappling. You fought bare knuckle boxing, and you fought Gordon Ryan. Have you noticed the same change in fighting, or has it been there's still brotherhood in fighting? It seems like that's starting to go away. At least like everyone that's coming in now, it's hard to get them to bite into like being a family. It takes a long time to get guys to really understand that we need to be there for each other. And everyone's, when it's their turn, they're up. And then it's hard to teach that now. It feels like it used to always be like that. Do you see that in your gym or?
There was a lot of team camaraderie with people like, say, the Huas Tudo team back in the day, and even Brazilian Top Team. And, things don't always go, they don't always last, right? And some of that isn't even about someone becomes a jerk and it all falls apart or they leave. sometimes it really, and this can even be applied to those instances where people say, oh, that guy's he's a piece of shit, he's a jerk, because whatever. Oftentimes I see it as there are these evolutions and people got to break out on their own. And it's just as simple as that. And it wasn't done to be malicious or against you so much as it was for them and their growth. But and this is an endeavor that is almost it's almost entirely centered on the individual, and that's fine. But you get there with a team, and there is that aspect of it as well. And it can be tough to get people to disconnect, or let's say flip the switch from being so self-centered to being more community-centered, or putting that interest into somebody else. I mean, one example could be, people show up to help you prepare for your match, and then after that conclusion of that match, then when it's their turn to go out and compete, you're not there, right? That's like a pretty typical one. You go, you do your thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm dipping out until I feel like coming back. Like, what about everybody else that was helping you? They got their matches, they got their fights, they got their stuff to do. And now that you got yours, that's unnecessary. Well, then might as well go to the boxing model and pay people to show up. But in MMA, nobody wants to fucking pay for anything. I mean, holy shit, man. I took, Stitch Duran was my hand. He taped my hands, did all my cuts. Well, I left the UFC. I'm like, well, I want the best guy in the world to be in my corner with this. And other former UFC guys from the States, they'd end up with me on a card in Japan. They're like, oh, hey, will he do my hands? And I'm like, if you pay him. Oh, never mind. Okay, then don't do your own way. But I see that if it was convenient that you could get something for free off of what I've paid for, then okay, great. But if it should cost you something for this man's time and experience, and the fact that I paid to bring him over, no bueno. To ensure your money makers, or to make sure that if you get lit up and you get cut, you can continue on in the fight. Nope. And maybe that winning bonus is like 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, keep going. It's not worth them to pay a little bit of money to protect that, potentially. Priorities, my man. But at the same time, I think that there is still plenty of camaraderie to be found in combat sports, but there is also, I would say there's more gimme, look at me, individual, overall kind of stuff, where everybody else has to be put to the side for themselves. It doesn't matter who they step over. But it's, at the same time, it's also difficult to really hold too much of a grudge, and to determine where that line should be, at which you can cross it, or you can get right up to it. And then once you've gone, where going over it would be the problem, and where that line would lie. And that's because we're fighting. This isn't the best friends fucking championship. This is smash people's teeth down their throat and make money off of their misery. It's go into the cage and go, okay, this motherfucker's here because he thinks he can beat my ass. That is inherent in every time that you have an opponent. When they put their signature to that line on the contract, it's because, oh yeah, I can win. I can beat you. I can take from you. I can kick your ass. I can leave you on the floor and walk with my hands raised in glory over you. Okay, let's go. Doesn't have to be personal, but I'm going to fucking kill you. And if not, okay, but you're going to remember it. Anyways, with that in mind, you would expect people to think in that nature, in some sentiment, some aspect, not to mention the hyping of the fight itself. But I think people have now confused faux and dishonest egotism and egocentric, obnoxious histrionics for being a high-level sportsman, and it's just selfish behavior to the point of to an extreme level. That's all it is. But it's increased. It's always been there. Go look at some of the old boxing stuff. Hell, I mean, if you want to really kind of put a pin on who has some of the most responsibility for it, it's Ali, and we love Ali. But Ali, he started playing with fire, talking a lot of shit all the time. Now, we also understand that Ali was friends with almost everybody he fought to a degree, if not before, but after. But even still, it made for fights. But, just because Ali could do it doesn't mean you can. I mean, the guy was just walking charisma. And when you do that, or even if you do it in a more aggressive kind of, how would you put it? Like a more aggressive and disrespectful way, then you go Floyd Mayweather, which is great for attention, but it's dangerous because if you ever should lose, everything you built could be gone. But when you're winning, oh man, getting people to hate you and getting people to love you are the same thing. They're caring. If they don't care, you're in trouble. That's when you're not going to go. That's when your career is dead in the water. And so Floyd getting people to hate him, maybe even more than people love him, still gets people to care. It's just that they care for a different reason. But if that reason should ever be fulfilled, it's all gone. Whereas if they do it because they love you, even with any sort of missteps and difficulties and tribulations, they'll still be there. You would figure. But Floyd never tasted defeat, so it all worked in his favor.
And now he gets to fight YouTubers. Like that's the way to get it, I guess. I mean, like, he's making lots of money to beat up guys that probably never didn't even be able to touch him. So it's a good racket if you can get it. It's
true. I mean, but he gets in the ring. If someone lands that punch and knocks him out, it all goes downhill, right? I mean, it becomes.
Yeah.
He was the guy. If he had gotten knocked out by one of the Paul brothers, I mean, look, I would have been really upset about it as well. Like, there's no way that should be happening. And I'm not like the biggest Floyd Mayweather fan, but I am a fan, and I love his boxing. He's incredible, and his whole family are. I don't know. You could call them boxing autists almost. Like, they can tell you probably things that you might, maybe everything you want to know about boxing, and things you had no idea that you wanted to know. Like, they really are walking, talking encyclopedias of boxing in such a way that you just go, okay, all right, there's genius here. It may be pointed in a particular direction, but it is genius, and it's undeniable. But I also see it as Floyd's, in a way, like, he's putting money in other people's mouths, right? Like, you think anybody made more money than Floyd did on any of these things? No. But Conor never made as much money in a fight, even close, as he did in fighting Floyd, which is what has prompted a lot of these fighters, like Ngannou, let's say, to want to go out into the world of boxing and ply their trade. And it's not necessarily because boxing is more popular, because I don't think it is. It's because the fighters are able to incentivize or to exploit their themselves in the arena to get money off of other venues of revenue stream. So pay-per-view is better for the boxing side. You can get money off of tickets sold. You can get a percentage of food and bev potentially, and merch on the event. It's just like, there's just way more opportunity to get the money from all these different things, and it adds up. And then let's say you're the promoter and the fighter, like a Floyd or a De La Hoya, then you're getting the promoter cut, you're getting the cut as the fighter and all this. Of course, at the same time, if you then take on promoter duties, that means you're upfronting money too. This is why the promoter, no matter how much we can love a promotion for the way that they pay out and the way that they incentivize ways to garner revenue off of the events and the fights themselves for a fighter, or as much as we could hate a promoter. at the end of the day, the promoter, in my opinion, should generally get the largest cut because they put the most up at risk in terms of the financial and business side of things. I know from the fighting side, nothing in my mind is really going to truly compete with the fact that I go and put my body on the line and my life on the line to go out and fight, and so does my opponent. But that's not the world we live in, and it never has been. I mean, maybe there's veneration in the older days in a particular way, but we don't live in those days anymore. We live in these days, and we're not to compare, say, to an earlier era where you might maybe you would be given some sort of form of valuables of that time and place. We live in this era. We live in the modern or postmodern era, however you want to see it, and we have all these things in place, and gas bills need to be paid, electric bills need to be paid, seats need to be rented, arenas need to be rented. There needs to be a place, there needs to be a way to broadcast it. Like, so all the money that could have been available. Let's put it this way. If you want to fight for a cow, a goat, and some trinkets and baubles and a few things like that, and the fact that, maybe you get to fuck the hottest chick in the village, great, we could still do that easily. But if you want to be some sort of multi-millionaire with t-shirts and tennis shoes and commemorative dildos and whatever, right? Fuck, you're gonna have to work in this system. And the thing is, people are upset about what they're not getting out of that, not what they're not getting out of being seen as the world's greatest fighter or the victor, And I'm not saying that people shouldn't complain. No, I'm one of them. But I just think we need to keep some perspective as in the forefront of our mind as we talk about these things.
You put on pro wrestling events. Does that compare to MMA? I'm not sure. I've been involved with setting up an amateur MMA event. I know how much it is, how much it costs, like how hard it is to do. I can't even imagine what UFC goes through. How hard is pro wrestling?
It can be. It's hard in its own ways. There's a lot of overlap, and yes, exactly. Are we going to go through these chats at the end of the show at least?
We can.
Okay. I mean, that's just what I'm used to with the whole chats come in or super chats, people pay for them, and then at the end you go over them. Anyways, I don't want to get off topic, but yeah, it can be difficult because just arranging a venue and enough production necessities to make it look and feel the way you want it to, having enough seating, having food and drink there if that's possible, and maybe any permits you might need to fill out for that. And if you intend on streaming it and broadcasting it, as soon as you want to put it out there in the rest of the world, if it needs to be filmed, well, that changes everything. What you could do if it was live only, with no filming, maybe just besides people what they want to put on their phones at this point, but you're not going to produce, edit, and package a product to be sold to the world. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier, but then your ability to monetize it is greatly reduced. Plus, yeah, I think it's cool to build something and have something in the world where if someone goes, "What, you weren't at it?" Well, if you weren't there, man, I just don't know what to tell you. There's no way you're never going to see it because it was just one of those things. That's pretty dope. I love shit like that, but I also love having money in my bank account to do other things like make beer and so on and so forth. And also, you know what? That money that goes into my bank account, this is another thing that's not even considered, especially from the pro wrestling side of things, indie wrestling, I should say, especially. The more money I make, the more money I can pay to my wrestlers. But everybody always assumes it's just because the promotion gets bigger, that just means that the people at the top of the promotion is going to be greedy fucking pricks. But that's not always the case. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen more often than it should, because it does. But I'm the type of person that wants to incentivize people to do more, to strive, to give more, to feel more secure enough to go out there and give even that much extra, put that much more into it. And as an indie wrestling promoter, it's tough to be able to ensure that you can have repeat talent, because at any point they could be sucked up by WWE or AEW now, maybe New Japan Pro Wrestling, although I have a good relationship with them. So I have the opportunity to continue to use people, but then now, even in that scenario, you have to work within the confines of that contract and that promoter who's going to take precedent over you. So if you have enough, if you can build a big enough show with enough budget, then yeah, you could probably say, all right, well, we'll put you down for a multi-deal contract. So we'll continue to bring you back, and you'll give you like a favored nation status. So some other indie show comes around, you will say, no, I'm not doing that one because I have this already here. And you know that when you get there, you're getting paid, you're getting taken care of, and you're doing something you love somewhere you love to do it. But that takes money, because you got to build that security into the athlete, and you got to be able to have that money to secure the shows in advance too, which that all takes building a coffer to do that.
That's definitely difficult. Do you have to deal with any kind of commissions, or can you pretty much do whatever you want once you rent the building?
No, well, it depends state by state. In California, I don't think we have any commissions that we have to deal with, but New York, you do. Now, if it was MMA, yes, we have commissions. We have an amateur commission called Camo, and then we have I almost said New York State Athletic Commission. No, we don't have that. We have the California State Athletic Commission, and of course, there are particular fees that go into putting on events. Either way, and some of these fees, I fully back, like creating bonds for the event. That's to make sure everybody gets fucking paid. Because trust me, there have been times where I have been ripped off in my career, and it sucks. And there are people that still owe me substantial sums of money. And, my hands are tied as to what I can do about it, unfortunately. But
gotta go choke them.
To begin with.
I got a guy that takes care of bodies. We're all set.
You're so far away.
He'll drive, man. He's on injury reserve. Hurt his knee. He's got nothing but time.
Hey, Josh, what do you think about this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus catch wrestling thing that you see in social media?
I think it's in social media only because this is the reality of it. One, a lot of people that call themselves catch wrestlers and all that don't compete. They sit on their asses and they don't do shit. Number two, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just keeps assimilating catch into so much of its stuff and then just stealing it and calling it Jiu-Jitsu. So, I mean, that's really the reality of the landscape right now. It's really funny to see where, and people say it's the evolution of jiu-jitsu. I guess so, but it's also the evolution of you coming around to other arts, stealing their concepts and going, oh, it's ours now. Like the fuck it was, but okay, I mean, I guess when you're number one, which they are, then it's hard to really make much of an argument because all their fanboys are just gonna fucking deny anyways. They don't care. They get to win at the end of the day. So why bother to be truthful about it? I mean, look, one of my biggest pet peeves that I see these days is that you go around you look on social media, especially Instagram, and people are just fucking renaming moves constantly, calling shit things. It's like, just because the move is new to you doesn't mean that move is brand new, that you invented it. Come on, get over yourself. And I think it's to the point that a lot of times these days, people know it's not new to them, but they want to make themselves stand out. So they start trying to rename shit all the time. And so they can try and get some sort of notoriety out of it. It's pathetic. Well, how about just go out there and just win all the time? And if you win all the time, maybe with a particular move, then maybe you can name it in terms of as an homage to the fact that you're the one who uses it so much. While in catch, we call it a double wrist lock, and jiu-jitsu, they call it the kimura. Kimura has, in my opinion, a valid nomenclature behind it because of Masahiko Kimura. Works for me. So, but I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy, so it's a double wrist lock.
We stole everything anyway. I'm a jujitsu guy, and we stole judo, and we named it jujitsu. Like that's what we
Well,
do.
sort of. Actually, well, Mitsuo Maeda was down there doing professional wrestling. That's how he ended up in Brazil. Count Coma. Why would Mitsuo Maeda go wandering around the world, let alone fucking Brazil and South America, and call himself Conde Coma? Why would he do that? Unless he didn't. And the Gracie that ran the fucking carnival did. Because he was holding pro wrestling matches. But you know what those would be? Catch wrestling matches. So the whole reason Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exists at all is because of professional wrestling and catch wrestling. It wouldn't even be a thing if it weren't for that.
I'm sad now. You stole my whole life journey of jiu-jitsu.
or in a way it was created. It was capable of existing because the inspiration from this then stirred on this Gracie patriarch to go, hey, you know, this is a pretty warm, cool place. Chicks got great asses, you know, acai and mate. So, and churrascarias. So how about you stay and you start training my kids and your martial arts, which would be catch and old Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo. And judo being a derivative of the old jiu-jitsu in the first place. It's a sportified version as created by Jigoro Kano to make it safer so that it could be a sporting event, a combat sport instead of, you know, just strictly military discipline or like a fight to the death or something of that nature, or just self-defense. And from that, boom, you know, the Gracies were inspired, and even from them, it's not all called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu anymore, like it was in 1992 or 3 when the first UFC came out. Now we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a more generalized nomenclature, because lots of people are doing it who are not carrying the surname of Gracie. And there we go. More and more and more people on the mats, and more acai, I guess, as well. But you know, I don't call it tragic in any way that pro wrestling spawned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a way to get people back to what we used to kind of do all the time anyways, which is good.
I like that we're all in a community now, and the building of the match between you and Gordon Ryan was like catch wrestling, pro wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, and like
remember it was part of Quintet, and you know, so, and it's a match that came together potentially because it wasn't set in stone. It was just, it could happen on like a week and a half notice. So if you think that I was in California training with anyone like Gordon Ryan, then you know, no. If anything, it's a huge disappointment because, you know, getting the chance to get on the mat with the guy who is the best and for not having any capability of training to prepare for anything like that, and then being like, well, all right, that's it. You're old. That was your shot. Never going to happen again. Sucks.
Were you in good enough shape to tell how good he was? Does he feel like really that much better than everyone else?
No, he doesn't. I wouldn't say he feels like that much better than everyone else. I could just tell that like he's on his game. This is all he does. This is what he does day in and day out. Especially at the time, he just trains with the best guys every day in the world. That or some of the best guys, anyways. And he just focuses on being the best Brazilian, the jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't even call him Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's kind of his own thing at this point. And that's another thing we have to consider is that all these different, and even for the Brazilians back in the day, not every Brazilian jiu-jitsu stylist wrestles the same way. They just don't, because it's all dependent on the person who is the head of your school. And then from the particular athletes from those schools, right? So, Gordon felt like someone who he's just on it all the time. He wasn't exceedingly strong or anything, but he was very good in his positioning, and you know he there's those windows at which you can make something work and which you can't, or which that moment has passed. And the better you get, or I should say, the higher the competition level, the smaller and smaller those windows become. And you could tell on the mat that Gordon was someone who was training at such a high level and on such a regular basis and competing at such a regular basis that he's like hitting those little tiny gaps, those tiny windows right on all the time, right? Or very close to them. And that's just what comes from that kind of training environment. And also just from someone who's that good. I think he has a mind really built to try and break this stuff down for himself. I do like listening to the way he describes going through a particular move sequence and why it should work and where the defenses are coming and so on and so forth. Yeah, it sounds like he's got a good mind towards really orienting himself to fully understanding exactly what's needed to make those things work.
Do you think you would have ever been able to beat him? It seems like.
Oh, absolutely. Fuck yeah, I could have. With the right, I mean, look, maybe a couple years earlier, and if I had like a proper training scenario, fuck yeah, I would have beat him. But every time, don't know. Would have been a battle every single time. Yeah, it would have been tough. I mean, there's no givens, but yeah, I have no doubt I would have been able to beat him.
It seems like you have to like stop like doing pro wrestling and stop fighting and just concentrate on on grappling to do that. Would you have ever been able to take the time to do that? I mean, you got like
that's the thing. Probably no.
Water.
Probably not. Even if I cut away everything but getting down to the nuts and bolts of just fighting, honestly, going out there and doing sub only grappling or points, I'm sorry, but it doesn't allure to me as having even remotely the same level of significance as going out there and fighting. It just don't. And if we'd have both taken a break, even on that very night, with the amount of training, with the way my training scenario was set up even at the time, and then we came back around an hour later and then we did an MMA fight, I would have fucking sent his teeth all over the mat, right? It wouldn't have even been close. But that's not because Gordon Ryan sucks. It's because he's spending all his time training in a very specific environment and making himself the absolute best at it. And I believe he is. But I also really respect the fact that, at a certain point in time, he's putting a ton of effort into trying to become a better wrestler. And you watch him when he did that Nogi Worlds, he's trying to take everybody down. And you know what? Oftentimes wrestling is, but fuck it, man. It was non-existent. And then this guy's putting the fucking reps in. And then he's going out there and trying to execute. So, I only have in regards to stuff like that, I've only got praise. And like, I dig it. And I think that's, I'm fully on board and I support that kind of behavior, that kind of attitude towards things. So, and most of the time he didn't need to know how to wrestle. The only place he really needed to know how to wrestle, arguably, would have been ADCC. Everything else that you get away with not having to wrestle a bit, which is why wrestling is dismal generally in BJJ and BJJ competitions, because there's no incentive for it. Like, you would probably be better spent working on, stuff from guard, because you can score so much easier from there and score advantages from those positions. And you would have to assume it's because that's the way they want it to be. And, that's just the way the sport is.
They're tired of wrestling guys coming in and smashing everybody.
I mean, maybe I have been told that the insistence on why you have to register your black belt and you have to have your academy registered and all that kind of certification around it is called the Josh Barnett rule, because it came in the year after I won BJJ Worlds, because I showed up after registration, because I hit the promoter up directly, because I had a thing with these athletes I was working with, and I'm like, this one of them, I said, look, dude, you got to get on the mat. He's one of my best friends. I said, you do all this fucking training. You're a brown belt. you know what? You can't go out there and compete for real forever in life. You have a small time at which you can do that, and then you can keep training for forever, but you can't go out and go and say, do worlds, some shit, right? Compete at the highest levels. And he just goes, I'll do it if you do it. I'm like, you fucking bastard. So I was in Japan, pro wrestling, called home dude up, got me in the tournament, and I pro wrestled on a Wednesday, flew back, I think I lifted weights on Thursday and did I got back on a Thursday, lifted weights on Friday. No, lifted weights on Thursday, did 7 rounds of kickboxing on Saturday, and then competed in Worlds on Sunday after coming back from Japan and pro wrestling and IGF. And I won. But, I get there and they're like, he's not a fucking black belt. It's like, but I just put him on the mat with me. We'll see how it goes. And I won. And after that, it was like, no. We're not just letting some fucking goofball come in here with no BJJ. So you got to now register it all and so on and so forth. But it also is it's quite expensive. So it's more money towards the IBJJF as well.
It is crazy. It's so much money. I understand that. I still remember the Wicked Scarful he caught Dean Lister, and that was sick. Everyone likes your top team is tough.
I'm glad to popularize the head and arm ride. It's a great ride with lots of really great finishes, and if you're good at it, just the ride itself, you don't even really have to have your finishes there don't even have to be like the best in the world. If you can ride, if you can stick to them like like a piece of tape on the bottom of someone's shoe, man, it just brutalizes them. You being there, it is the worst place to be in wrestling. Stuck in a head and arm ride where someone just ass off the mat, putting their weight through you, just fucking kills you. And I'm glad that it's now become more popularized, because for the longest time, especially, again, it's not the fucking bitch about jiu-jitsu podcast, I'm sorry, BJJ guys would piss and moan and just say, oh, that position doesn't work. They refused to acknowledge anything about it. And what's so crazy is the earlier guys from BJJ used that position, used it well, because they had a different approach. I mean, it's also like I'll talk to folks and go, the original Gracies and the Fadas and all them, they threw everyone. They threw them, tripped them, like they took everyone down, then got on top, got in mount, armbar, mount, choke. That's the way it was. It was very top game specific, and they were always looking to land and get on top. Okay, things changed.
A lot easier to win a fight on top than getting smushed on the bottom. Like, making a fight changes it, and it was a fights back then. It wasn't just jiu-jitsu. There wasn't rules that protected you.
Right. Yeah, and they just had different approaches as to where they were going to put their efforts. But then over time, I think it just got to the point that no one was really teaching that position worth a shit anymore, and the energy was invested in some other ways. Then it gets to the point where someone tries it, and then people escape and take the back. So now so many people in jiu-jitsu think, oh, this is bad, never go there. And I've heard that in the beginning, was like, oh, that position doesn't work, never go there. That's for rookies. That's for, people that don't know anything. It's like, just because you suck at it and can't do it doesn't mean it sucks. It's not the same. Those are not equivalent things. And by me going out there and using it against Dean as a finish, I didn't even really, I had to ride to get the finish, but it was mostly just to hit the finish. People are using it in BJJ competitions and submission wrestling competitions and such, and fucking making people, choke on their own tongue, so to speak.
I got another question that just came in from Robert Gonzalez. He's, do you still go to Japan, and are you still recognized from your Pride days? And
yeah, my last
answer.
Yeah, of course. I go there all the time, still, as much as I can. I'm still recognized quite well, and it's a good market for me. I'm headed back September 3rd to compete against Masakatsu Funaki. I think he's a second maybe third king of Pancrase. I'm trying to remember which. I think he's a 2-time king of Pancrase, and I am still technically the 10th king of Pancrase. So we'll be going in the ring against each other at Pro Wrestling Noah in Osaka at Ideon Arena in September 3rd. That will be available on streaming on Wrestle Universe. So I'm gonna meet Funaki face to face and lock up with him for the first time on September 3rd this year. But last year, in December 28th, they had an event called Ganrujima Inoki Bambaye. And it was a end of the year event. Ganrujima has been around. It's a mixed martial arts promotion that is very much in the idea of mixed martial arts. It's got a very unique rule set that allows you to win by ring outs, by shoving someone off of a circular platform. And if you could do it 3 times in 1 round, the match is over. It's a really entertaining show. It's really fucking fun to watch. But Ganrujima and Inoki, the Inoki office teamed together, do an end of the year event that was a commemorative for the passing of Antonio Inoki. And so I had to be on it as one of Inoki's boys. He was a mentor of mine and brought me into professional wrestling and helped me along the way, and is really instrumental in who I am, not just as a professional wrestler, but as a fighter as well. And I take my time training under and being able to have conversations with Inoki very to heart. And I went and fought in the event and won. And it was nice to be back in the ring and also to be back in Japan, since I hadn't been there since 2020 or 19. It was Victor Henry's last fight in Rizin. And we got there in February, I think, of 2020. That may have been it. And the pandemic then kicked off, and there was no going back there for a while. And it was really nice to be back on what I felt was home turf.
That's awesome. I so glad like the pandemic didn't shut everything down everywhere for good. I was so worried that a lot of these organizations would go out of business. It was a really tough time for everybody, and I'm glad you're able to go back working now.
It was awful, and I'm not looking forward to anything like that in my lifetime. Fuck, no thanks.
Did you guys have snitches down by you? Like we had gyms, but people would snitch on us, and the police. It was like
we didn't. I mean, I'm sure they existed, but not something that came across our doorstep.
That's good. So hopefully you guys were able to keep everything open and underground and going on like we all tried to too.
We did a good job of keeping things moving, and honestly, we didn't have any outbreaks in the gym whatsoever. We just kept the policy of, if you're feeling a little under the weather, just don't show up, and get tested if you need to. And if you're sick, stay out. And when you can come back in the gym after you've taken, if you come to the gym, come to the door, take a rapid test, you test negative, you can come back in. So we found ways to get rapid tests so that we'd had them on hand in larger quantities. And we just wanted to make sure that we could keep the afflicted away from the healthy and just keep going. And as people recover, let them back in the gym. And, we did see a variety of different things in terms of after effects, but I think for the most part, all of them seem to have straightened themselves out and no lasting issues.
That's good. I know a couple of UFC guys seem like they got really messed up by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, a few people did get hammered pretty hard, but it seemed like over time they were able to eventually come back to full strength. But I mean, the virus itself, you didn't really know exactly how it was going to go. You might not have a single symptom whatsoever, and it just goes right on through like a fart in the wind, right? Or it's completely wrecks you and gives you nasty pneumonia and whatever. I mean, it was just such a broad spectrum of how it could turn out. It just never were exactly, and it didn't matter vaccinated or not. Whether you would suffer particularly bad or not at all. So it was hard to tell.
Yeah, it seemed like the vaccine was a giant waste. It turns out it may be more dangerous than it helped.
Time is what's
Yeah,
necessary to find out
yep.
about not just this vaccine, but anything is really judged by its efficacy over time. And it's always nice if something comes in and it's very promising to begin with, but you'll only know after having enough time to see what goes through. And obviously that's the most difficult thing to get a hold of is more time. So we will find out.
Carlton and Brock. What's been your favorite matchup at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport?
Well, I hate to say wrestling Minoru Suzuki for myself because it's my show and me. Other than that, Chris Dickinson versus Minoru Suzuki both times were really fucking great matches. I was incredibly impressed with John Morrison versus Royce Isaacs last time around. There's been quite a few of them. Davey Boy Smith Jr. versus John Moxley is a killer one. God, that was a great match. It's hard to just pick one, and I've got too much invested in everybody. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one is just around the corner.
Those questions always trying to throw a promoter under the bus. Those are like very difficult to answer. The answer is like every fight is the best. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Come see my shows.
Well, and you can watch those on Fight TV.
Oh, they're on Fight TV?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
What's my opinion on the Joe Rogan Dr. Peter Hotez shit going? It's just that it's shit. Hotez, he stands in his camp and RFK Jr. stands in his. So RFK Jr. to my understanding, and don't take this as the last word, at least this aspect of it anyways. I don't know that he's against vaccines entirely or if he's just a vaccine skeptic, but either way, he has a lot of disparaging things to say about the vaccination protocols, the industry itself, and everything that goes with it. And Hotez is like a dyed in the wool, all the way to the bone vaccine supporter, lover. I'm not sure how you would. I mean, he's very, 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 very like he is all about the system and the vaccination programs and everything as they do exist. And of course, then you have them both in a more what is the word I'm looking for? In a more current sense, fighting about the COVID vaccines. And RFK Jr. is very much in the no, they don't work, they were harmful, and he's very much anti those, and Hotez is very much pro those vaccines. So okay, RFK Jr. went on Hogan, Joe Hogan.
Joe Hogan.
Yeah, he went on Rogan. Yeah, too much Hanato Laranja from me. He went on Rogan, and he said I had a lot to say. And then Hotez, I believe, came out and was very disparaging about the whole thing. And Joe just said, look, I'll give you $100K to the charity of your choice to come on and debate him. Then from that, it turned into a whole shit show where Hotez is now chucking ad hominems and insults at Rogan, essentially, as a way to say he didn't need to. Rogan calls him on it. Because Hotez says like $100,000. That's just what you spent on your little hunting with your hunting buddies and your little hunting. It's just dismissive and patronizing. It's just shitty. You're like, whoa, dude. I mean, what the fuck? The guy didn't say anything bad about you. He gave you an op. He put his money where his mouth is, right? And not for or against anyone in particular, but for the people to come out, for Hotez and RFK Jr. to come out there and debate their positions. So. He does that. He makes this shitty, shit talking kind of essentially tweet, deletes it. Joe sees it, says, "Oh yeah, I saw you deleted that." And he goes, "Well, I felt like it wasn't the right approach," says Hotez, and that wasn't what I should be doing, and I should be more professional and courteous about these sort of things. he also had put in there, he basically moved the goalposts about 100K, that ain't shit. And, 25 million or some crazy number, right? Because that's what's needed to put money into vaccination this or health that. Like it's, he's probably even talking about like third world health stuff. He's not even I would imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not talking about healthcare in regards to Americans, right? But in any case. And Rogan goes, oh, no. Yeah, well, how about this one? And he sees another tweet where Hotez is calling him a neo-fascist. It's like, oh, God. It's like, fuck. Everything, this Hotez guy just seems, he just seems disingenuous as a person. It's not even about, at this point, what the positions are on vaccines and the data and for and against and which specific vaccines and which vaccine schedules and all of that, right? It's that he seems like a spineless little fucking dipshit who loves being a part of the strength of being on the side of the narrative and the regime that's the accepted narratives and the regime that institutes them, so that he can sit there and he can act in ways in which he doesn't have to have accountability, and he can treat people and dismiss them in ways because he won't suffer anything for it, because he's with the accepted hegemony at the moment. And so, which isn't about whether or not that hegemony is right or wrong. It's not even getting into that argument. It's just that because he's on that side, he gets to get away with whatever he wants. And you could say the same for Joe in a sense that, he could say something ridiculous and his fan base will absolutely go to bat for him. But that's not even really what we're talking about here. We're trying to talk, or I should say I'm not a part of this. The conversation is about something in regards to data and science, right? And science is about a particular process, non-falsifiable, and to figure things out beyond a shadow of a doubt, or beyond the best shadow of a doubt we can now, until better resources, better systems and testing and things arrive at which we could get a better, clearer result. Science, so to speak, is never truly settled, essentially. With that, I think Hotez has no real interest in debating anyone, and I think he can just defame and move the goalposts enough. If he comes up with a strong enough defamation or slander, neo-fascist, let's say, then pretty much he can be excused for never interacting with them once at all, in any case, in any way. And it's funny is when he gets caught on this and called out, then he starts fucking dick tucking hardcore and trying to create an opportunity for himself to get in front of Joe, just not in the way that is being offered, so that he could get on there, use Joe's platform, make money for himself. Who knows, right? Boost his own ability and debate Joe or someone, right? So maybe someone he feels like he can dominate maybe in a debate over these scientific subjects here, or that even if Joe was to maybe out debate him, which also I have to say that by and large, just because you're good at debating doesn't mean what you say is legitimate. It's kind of like the winner of a duel isn't necessarily the right man, or isn't proven correct in their arguments. And there are people that are very smart and very very on point about what they have to say, but they cannot live debate. They're just shitty at it. And with that, you can get someone like an Eric Dyson or someone like that, who's just a fucking how do you say it? Rhetorician, rhetorist. He's basically a rhetorist. He just nothing but sophistry the whole time and bullshit. And you're like, and then, oh yeah, well he totally won that debate. He said a bunch of bullshit that sounded cool and got you to emotionally invest, but you didn't actually cut down the argument itself. So there's plenty of people out there like that, more like that than less. Or you could be a Slavoj Žižek, who just never actually addresses the thing itself and just fucking says what he feels like and goes all around it and whatever. And then eventually it's all over. And maybe he makes like one point and then moves past it, and then debate's over. There was no debate. He never debated. He just fucking played Jizik the whole time, sniffing and stroking his nose. Anyways, this whole thing just breaks down to, it's just another little Weasley fucking media apparatchik who loves the power and the protection afforded to them from their position within the overarching narratives that exist and the regimes around them. And then he doesn't want to actually, and then people keep adding more money to it. I think it's up to like $800,000 that people are saying they're willing to put in to have donated towards Hotez's charity of choice. For me, I'm like, this is just, I only care for the most part because Joe's my buddy and I believe he's sincere. And I can't speak about any of these other people throwing their hats in the arena and money, like Tim Pool or who else. Like, are they actually going to fucking follow up? I won't vouch for them. I don't know them. But Hotez came out, he slung the arrows, but now he just wants to sit in the castle and say that, well, they all hit their target, and therefore I don't have to bother going to battle over my ideas anymore. It's like, okay, I don't think that's the way anything was ever crafted in the world of science or otherwise, but there you go.
Joe's got the biggest platform in the world because I feel like he's about transparency. He wants to find out the truth. Like,
you touched on something, and someone else pulled a fucking, and it wasn't even an old one. It was all within these this most recent threads with Hotez on his own timeline of him responding to someone who is a pro Hotez person, cheering him on, saying, oh, well, I work so hard to try and find as many ways to spread the message and to be able to talk about these things because I care about them so much, and it's so important that I get the word out there, so on and so forth. You get my drift. And then someone's like, click, what the fuck then? Why won't you go on the biggest fucking podcast in the world to spread your message? Silence. Yeah, it's just bullshit. It's bullshit because that's not it. People are more concerned about losing their position, whether they've earned it or not, more so than they are about doing the best or right thing that they could do. And that's not just this guy. It's a lot of people. It's most people in the forward-facing aspect of what we see on television from politicians and otherwise. It's just, they're not any good. In fact, I would say that most people in levels of bureaucracy and government can't actually make, create, or fix anything. All they can do is manage things. They can push the papers along. They can sit around in committee where somebody has already done all the work for them to write up all this fucking garbage, and then they just go and pass it off as their own. But if something's broken in it or it needs to be fixed, like the whole Flint, Michigan thing, right? The water all being fucked up. What we could send billions of our equipment to a war so far away from us that is not on our shores and has no danger of being such, but we cannot fix water in one of our own cities with our own citizenry. Water. What is more necessary other than air? Right? It's like it's the big three: water, air, and food. You can't handle that, but you can send state-of-the-art manned guided anti-tank missiles. Come on, fuckface. This is bullshit. You know what I mean? It's just, oh, well, we got to fill the forms. No, you got to put water in the people's hands. And then you got to go and see what the system is. And then you got to come to the governor and the mayor and the people in charge of all this shit and be like, you're fucked. Is this your fault? If it is, you're fucked. I'm putting you in prison because you're that fucking, because your job is about the overseeing of the systems and the people involved so that it works and so that it actually delivers on what it's supposed to, that the taxes pay to support these things so that people can live and be able to go about their lives and raise their families and have their communities and be a part of this and not be fucking stricken by some poisonous fucking garbage water or having to completely up and leave their place if there was something you could have done about it. And if there was, and you didn't, that's on you.
Can you imagine if there's a transparency in the world to actually make that happen? Like,
no, I cannot. Well, it's not something you could ever expect. Like there's never going to be full transparency because to some degree, I don't know that we're capable of dealing with that. Depends on the type of governments we have. And to expect every individual actor to understand what any piece of governmental bureaucracy or system and what it needs to do and how it needs to do it. I mean, I just, people got too much shit on their plates already, man. It's enough to deal with the modern world as it exists, to be able to have enough time to go and learn jiu-jitsu in the first place, and to go and compete, and to be there with your friends, and to take care of your family, and to take care of your extended family and friends, and to have a successful career, and to be good enough at that to continue that on enough so that you can actually afford to keep doing the jiu-jitsu lessons, so that maybe at some point you might even transition out of what you were doing to running, Caveman fucking jiu-jitsu podcast and academy with
I'm working on that, man. I still got to work the regular full-time job.
big wooden bonker clubs and your own, ceremonial dildos.
That's what I should make, ceremonial dildo clubs.
Ceremonial. So that they're only for a special occasion.
That's what's
not your everyday use. Yeah. But no, I at the very least, I think it would be minimally sensible to put things like any criminal infraction committed while in office garners like triple the penalty. At least something like that. Like it's the level of with the level of responsibility comes also the level of accountability, which also comes with the same. It also should come with the territory of when if you betray that, then you need to suffer.
This is like everything that's in power. Like the church has to protect the priests that are bad touching kids. Like the politicians the Democrats got to protect the Democrats. Republicans got to protect the Republicans. It's just people. It's our nature. We have to find a way to beat nature. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Yeah, we have that's a big part of it, and that goes very deep and very broad.
I know we're running out of time, but I got a couple of questions myself that I have to ask before we got here. How is it working?
Oh, by the way, the time thing is mostly my fucking fault because I don't shut the fuck up. So I'm sorry.
No,
I mean, Ray over here, he's the one who hit me up, and he ain't said fucking word one.
I got a question for you though.
Well, hold on.
When you
I got a Caveman's question first, and then we'll go to you, Ray. What's up? What was it like training or rolling with Matt Hume?
Yeah, what's it like just training with him? Like,
it was awesome. I mean, he's a huge part of the foundation of who I am as a fighter, and I will say that our personalities, and I think the way that we are and the way that we approach fighting, like it just meshed. Like we are of a similar spirit in the way that we look at things. We're not the same, but who I am and who he is, it worked well together. And there was a good mix of old school, hardcore toughness, OG, like fucking nasty, knuckle breaking, bleeding, beat up, battered kind of hardcore training, but also with a lot of highly technical, very specific things geared towards that proper understanding, that technical understanding, and then working from those things to find all those little weaknesses and gaps, and also find all the reasons why the things that were strong are strong. Well, your strong suits are. Why are they that? Why is that the case? Why can't we make them stronger? And if maybe this thing is strong, can this be used to make other things stronger? So it's about that breaking down to its smallest bit, and then constantly rebuilding up or building onto in addition. He's the wizard for a reason. And when I left AMC, it was really tough for me to think of anyone that I could train with that was gonna be able to coach me in a way that would really elevate my game in the same way that Matt could. And that's how I ended up with Eric Paulson.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I train with Ajahn Chai, who's like a big proponent of Eric Paulson. So like I've trained with him in seminars, not like I don't know him personally, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's a great man. There's so much respect for you from everybody that talks about you. So it's super cool to actually have you on the podcast. And I don't mean to keep talking over Ray. Ray, go ahead.
All right, Josh. Out of all the fights you had, MMA fights you had, any fight piss you off? Like would you have a rematch right now? Do you want a rematch for anybody you fought?
Yeah, Nogueira, because I felt like it was a bullshit decision in the second match. I don't think he won it, and I think it was garbage. I think it was because I think Pride wanted to see a third. They wanted the rubber match, and I don't think that Pride like fixed it or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I just think that was maybe the bias on the judges leaning in. Like I felt like maybe there's a consideration for that. And I think there were some times where people in Pride still saw me as not a Pride guy, but as a UFC guy. And it's like, I mean, I fought more here than I did there. So which is it, you know? So therefore they're, you know, a bit biased against me that way. So yeah, that one. I would fight, even though he's my buddy, Mirko, just because I never got to fight him when I was fully healthy. You know, I had a labrum tear apparently and fucking tore my shoulder out in the first one, and came back way too soon to try and be getting back in the ring, and went to a decision, and then fought him at the end of the one night of the open weight Grand Prix after fighting Nogueira the full 10 minutes and 5 minutes before that, and a really deep battle. And even then, you know, man, it was hell on me. I was having it was quite the uphill challenge, but I scooped his leg after getting battered underneath and looking to roll up and invert and get a leg catch and go to work. And he inadvertently was trying to just posture away and keep me from getting into his leg, and he just accidentally fucking like 2 knuckles deep in the eye. And I tapped because I had seen guys taking eye pokes, it not get registered, and then getting soccer kicked when they're blind. So I was just like, oh shit, I can't let that happen. Then I go and I see the video afterwards. Mirko's like, oh shit. And the ref's like, okay. And I'm tapping. I'm like, well, whatever, you know. It is what it is. And you know what? Add Cormier onto that too. You know, if I hadn't broke my hand that first 23 seconds, man, I don't.
Cormier might smash you now. He's so round. I don't know if you could lock your hands around him right
now. You know, DC is an Olympian, and I think that people. I don't care how much fucking Popeyes he's eating. Guys that go through an Olympic training cycles or world international level wrestling training cycles or sporting cycles of any sport, right? It could be speed skating, figure skating, gymnastics, like you name it, right? It is the pinnacle, and there are structures built around that to develop that athlete in to create those athletes of that high level. And if one isn't going to make it, another one could. You know, it's an incredible system, and it produces incredibly tough as nails, greatly athletic individuals. And so I just think that, you know, as fat as he wants to get, DC, he's an athlete forever, and he's been an Olympic level athlete. He is the shit. You know, it is. It's just that's the way it is.
Do you like his commentary? I think it's really good. A lot of people don't like it. I think it's I like that he gives his take on everything.
I can't really say that much. I don't really watch that many fights. I know he's quite passionate about being behind the camera and on the mic. And, you know, I think if people really disliked it that much, I don't think he would be there. So he must be doing something right. And I would err towards faith in DC. He's a good dude.
I love him to death. I come up, I wrestled my whole life, like since 8th grade, and like, dude, he's he's something special. Everyone is, just like you said, is, but he's something special. And
well, hey, even one of the reasons why I'd want to fight DC again is because, I remember seeing, wrestlers cheering for him. I'm like, hey, fuck faces. I went to Fargo. I wrestled. I placed in state multiple times in freestyle, Greco, and in high school. I had an invitation to the high school national championships, but I thought, like, folk style, who gives a fuck? Fargo was all that mattered. Oh, I should have went. But anyways, I got into wrestling late, but I've done nothing but train with wrestlers, work on wrestling. I have been a part of many camps working with high school wrestlers. I've been a part of helping wrestlers like Tony Nelson prep for international wrestling as well as other things. So, I am a wrestler as well. My roots are wrestling. I'm a wrestler. This is also why I'm a catch wrestler, because think about, the easiest way to describe catch to people is it's folk style wrestling with submissions, because American folk style wrestling is completely derived from catch. When Lancashire wrestling ended up in the States, this is where the rule set came from. This is why we have folk style.
And that we're the only country in the world that does it, really. Everyone else is freestyle Greco.
Well, that's because fucking Britain doesn't wrestle anymore. It's so weird.
We got a question. This one might take a little bit from you. I know how you answer questions. This is from one of our members, Ed Rogers. He's like, is Dana White truly an SOB to work with? I hear some serious war stories. And I know he had a little bit of problems with UFC at times, too.
We've had our battles. And I'm not a person to back down. So I always had something to say when something was said. I think you don't want to get on his bad side. I think that things tend to run personal for him, and personal will overtake business, and he's got quite a lot of passion and emotion into his project here. So, or what he definitely considers his project. So what are we laughing about?
Slap fighting?
No, that's trash. But so if he gets a personal issue with you, like, you might as well not even be there. But I'll say this much: we get along just fine, but I fully expect not to be on anywhere near his good list. And you do not see, I remember I was walking down the steps at the PI, and look, man, I love what they're doing for Victor Henry. They fucking take great care of him. They've been good to me. I can have criticisms and critiques, but I have no interest in trying to burn the UFC down, not even just for my fighter's sake, but just in general. I just don't. But we're walking down the steps at the PI, and they've got all these, like, names and faces of Hall of Famers and shit. And our boxing coach is like, when are you going to get up there? I'm like, never. She's like, what do you mean? I go, fuck, man, they hate me in terms of that. Like, they don't want me associated with anything to do with them. And, they've never wanted my voice to be associated with the UFC. So when opportunities for commentary and or like stuff having to do with the television side of things, ESPN or others, my name is, I had been approached by producers and the backstage, but at some point there's someone somewhere that said there ain't no fucking way Josh Barnett ain't getting anywhere near what we do. So, but if they don't think but at the same time, if they don't think I'm a fit for what they want, I'm not here to tell them that they have to use me or that, fuck them. I could think fuck them from a personal perspective, but it's their business. It's their thing. If I didn't think, even without any personal animosity to someone, if I felt like someone wasn't the right fit for something I'm doing, hey, look, we're blood sport. Someone could be a great person, but in my eyes and my mind, they don't belong here. Like, it's just not going to work. It's not what I'm looking for. It's not what I'm trying to it wouldn't go into what I'm trying to build here. That's not because I hate them, right? It's not, I know what I want my product, my thing, my endeavor to look like. And if that's the way the UFC feels, then I totally don't begrudge them. It just in that regard, you know. I can't be mad at them and yet also then have the same and maybe and do the same thing, do the very same thing that I would be mad at them for with my own. Yes, I'm in the Ariel Helwani club because Helwani is a good friend of mine. Yes, Ariel is a buddy. I back Ariel. I'm not saying so in like any regard to like, you know, fuck Dana White. Ariel. I'm not involved in any of that shit. But I stand up but I do back my friends, and I know that Ariel and Dana they got real heat, and it is what it is. It's not my heat, but yes, I'm a very much an Ariel Helwani guy. He's my buddy, and I support my friends just like I support Joe. And you know, look, Joe and Ariel it was mostly Ariel, but still there was like a little some Twitter, some online kind of. It's fine, you know. But I'm for friends, not for creating enemies per se.
Well, kind of his job is to make things to talk about too, and he believes in what he says, and that makes people talk.
And Dana he's not been the best with dealing with critique and criticism, and even then with that, I think it's specific. You know, certain things might touch him off, and other things not. You know, sometimes maybe it's just that day, or maybe it's the way it's been said, or maybe if he feels like you have any ulterior motives, I can definitely play into it too. I know what that's like.
Seems a very hit or miss kind of guy. Like some days he'll like do something completely random and great for someone, and some days he's like, what the fuck, and just burn the place down.
He has made more than a few people very wealthy. And I don't just mean by the UFC existing. I mean, he has been a part of, I'm not even saying he's the sole decision maker at times, but he has been a part of putting some very serious bonus checks in people's hands that are not from Fight of the Nights or things like that. I mean, this is actually part of a problem, or was part of the reason why Randy Couture left the UFC, because his contract amount was X. I'm not sure if Nogueira, when he came in, was given a better contract on paper, but Randy found out that not on paper, he was getting substantial checks. And Randy was like, what the fuck? That just did it for him. He's like, But then there's also been people who had great contracts, but also had really great relationships that were also being given really, really, really generous checks. So he's done pretty big things for people that he considers his guys and his gals. And it was and I could be wrong on this, but it was probably his idea to have people like Chuck and Matt Hughes as employees for life kind of thing. And Nogueira, who is still there, I believe, as a scout or someone involved in the Brazilian UFC office. So, I mean, look, if you're Chuck Liddell, Dana White, well, he was his manager at one point too. People don't remember that. He managed Dana managed Chuck, and he managed Tito.
Yep.
Yeah, he started the whole thing and took him to Pride, all that. That was back in the day, the Pride versus UFC. Man, those were so exciting days back when there was two organizations that were the same. How's Scott Coker to work with?
Pretty easy, very affable. You know, you're not going to get him. He's not anything like Dana in a personality way. Like if Scott had a problem, I mean, Scott has problems with people. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he's just like, oh, you know, everything water off a duck's back. Like nobody could do wrong. Oh yeah, there are people that Scott's like, yeah, fuck that guy. But his approach is completely different. You know, he handles things in a completely different way. Whereas Dana will come out, he will find a camera to tell you how much he wants to see that guy fuck himself. And Coker, you would never, if you even hear him swear ever on camera, I'd be shocked.
Wow, that's pretty cool. We got our boy Pat next. We gotta give a shout out to him, Western New York's own. Love him to death. Just won that $1 million tournament in Bellator. So every time we get someone really cool like
Oh,
you,
Patchy. He's tough
yeah,
as shit, man. He
Yeah.
is tough. You know, the one thing I didn't expect, he's going to win by knockout of all things.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That's wild. That's wild. I expected it to be a grappling thing. Boy, caught him. Good work.
He's been working hard on stand up. Like he never shows it, and it's crazy he's standing southpaw because he's right-handed. So like obviously it helps his wrestling and his takedowns.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of my athletes from a while back, Megumi Fuji, she was a judoka, sambo, and she came from a grappling background. She did everything right foot forward. And then I convinced her, me and another guy really pushed on her to get into MMA. Finally, she's like, okay, I'll do it. And to begin with, she starts off, she's right-handed, fighting out of a orthodox stance with left foot forward. But I get a hold of her and I'm like, no, we're not doing this. We're gonna you go back to your standard wrestling stance, the stance that you've been doing almost the entirety of your life, and we will teach you, since you have no idea what it is to be a fucking striker. I will teach you to strike from this stance where you already do all the things you're already the best at. And it just makes sense. So if I was to work with a wrestler, and they're right-handed and wrestled with a right lead, southpaw, I'm going to teach them how to be a striker out of a southpaw. I'm not going to diminish or weaken the thing that they're already the best at in their repertoire so that they can be mediocre in everything. Like, fuck that, it's much easier for me to teach someone who's never boxed before to just box out of any stance I give them. It's all the same. Well, who fucking cares? You've never thrown a punch, idiot. So come here, forget all that stuff about what stance you got to be in. So if I'm Patchy Mix's coach, I'm going to do the same thing. And if he doesn't have to show a stand-up, why the fuck am I going to do it? Keep putting you into the waters that I like to swim in and drown you. And the days that comes where we got to get up on the beach, I knee you in the face.
He's so much bigger than Pettis. That's going to be another great match too. So
who's he fighting coming up?
Sergio Pettis next for.
Yeah, boy, Pettis is so slick. He's got great timing. It's gonna be tough, but and he's always, both the Pettis bros are way better grapplers than ever. Everybody always thinks about their striking, but damn if they don't keep fucking triangling people, right?
Yeah.
I would send him $1,000 if he triangles Pat Mix. I don't see him getting submitted.
I wouldn't bet on winning by triangle against Pat Mix either, but it's MMA. Weird shit happens.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for your time. I know you.
Thank you, Josh.
We didn't talk about your beer at all. Your beer launches.
Oh yeah, well we've been out. We got some distribution on it here locally in Southern California, mainly in the LA area. It's called Black Blood of the Earth. It is it's a reference to Big Trouble in Little China, but it is a really dark barley wine at 11.5%. It was aged in our ex-bourbon barrels. And it's got a really, really, really great palate, nice, deep, full flavor, very smooth. But it's not like one of those dark beers. If you drink them, it feels like you just had a meal. It's lighter than that, but it's still like a very deep, rich taste. I like to refer to it as Stygian. But we're gonna do a cool little party at Knucklehead on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. There's a concert there with. Trying to remember the name of the first band that night, which is Dread Phase. And then we got New Skeletal Faces, who I tend to describe as like Bathory meets Bauhaus, and Persecutor, who are define themselves as Romanian ice metal. Whatever that exactly is. But we're going to all get together. We're going to headbang. We're going to mosh. We're going to get wild. And I'm going to get everybody drunk as shit on 11.5% barley wine and let the fist fights commence. It's going to be a great time. Me and my buddy Eddie from Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast, we're doing it. And we're just going to be having a great time, kicking it with these great bands, listening to great tunes, and seeing some great people out there doing meet and greet, selling beer.
That sounds amazing. It's better than Canadian beer, way higher percentage. That's great.
Way higher percentage. This is not Molson's. This is a whole different animal. Although I do like Yingling quite a bit. Also, it's the oldest American brewery.
I got you and my wife would love to hang out. She's all about the bourbon, all about the beers.
Yeah, you and my wife should hang out.
No, not like that. Not like that. I'm not no weirdo like that. I'm not like you can hook us up with some drinks. Damn, we want to keep you father free on Father's Day.
Well, I have a fiance, so it's not hopefully in the too far future.
Oh well, good luck, man. Hopefully it works out.
Yeah, me too.
Child support's expensive, so make sure it's the right one. I'm just saying. No, I'm just kidding.
This is true. Unless you're Uncle Hinach, then you just got to have good running shoes.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you. I've been a fan of you since I started watching MMA. Youngest champ to the oldest guy fighting around. So you're battling with these young guys. You're in my age group. It's crazy to see. You're an amazing athlete.
Well, you learn how to cheat a lot smoother and better as you get older.
I'm not reaching into his gloves, I swear.
Good talking to you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Take care.
Yep.
Josh Barnett. Very good, Ray. I can't believe he actually showed up.
Yeah, man. It was a long drive, but I made it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't believe you actually got Josh Barnett. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys all for watching. This is Jeff and Ray. We're about to be out of here. Well, this is our longest podcast of all time. Thanks, Mr. Barnett. He's a great talker. And this is way better than the Coleman one that we only posted an hour of when he was pretty hammered. It was 6 hours long. But thank you for getting this guest. I've got to thank Josh Barnett for being on the show one more time. Yeah. And we'll catch you next week. Have a great night, guys.